Hello there. Welcome to my third part, I believe it is the third part of me talking about how I GM'd, or I'm beginning to learn to GM with Shadowdark. In the first episode, I sort of covered how nervous I was, and the second episode, I spoke about sort of starting to get used to things, and how the story's progressed. So I guess I really should catch people up who haven't watched the first ones. I've done five uh, so five sessions so far at this point in well, how I'm GMing. In reality, as we're up to date, I've actually now completed my fourth session, which has gone absolutely swimmingly. I'm really happy with it. But so far in the part three for this video, it'll only have been five that have passed. And how we ended the last session was one of the players wanted his character, Leolin, to be written out because he wanted to be a new character. He wanted to be a wizard rather than a cleric. So I said it was okay. So I wrote her out in this big dramatic death scene where she ended up being decapitated by another player's character's brother. And it turns out, oh my god, this brother is really evil, and he's actually working for this cult that our heroes are currently trying to stop. Now, doing that gave me a fantastic idea about how to progress the story. To begin with Shadowdark, I was just following like the simple rules, the simple sort of things, and using sheets that I had produced or printed out, I should say, to keep myself going, sort of for the Abbey or the plot, basically. But from here on in, this is where I decided to kind of go my own thing, almost. Now, I'll get to that point actually, because I did use a different map for the last session, or second to last session. No, it wasn't actually. No, it was for the first session, or the beginning of the first session. No, it wasn't. I'm lying. Oh my god, I don't know where I'm at. It was for the second session. That's where we are. I used a map that's actually pre-made in Shadowdark. I'll go over that though momentarily. So, as our heroes basically were grieving, I started the actual session up with a funeral. That only seemed fitting. It also was a good way of establishing the new character in the place, because he was Wormy, is his name, and his cousin was called Leolin. So it's a good way of combining the two. And I thought it'd be quite dramatic to start with rain falling, like a very stereotypical by the numbers funeral scene. But also, again, it's quite handy for those guys to introduce or get introduced to a brand new character and have a chat about that. And from there, I had to establish my sort of overall plot. And now this is the plot that I'm actually going to continue towards the end of the campaign. I don't know how long the campaign is going to take, but I am quite excited about it. We are a little ways into it now. But to begin with, I had my characters. The reason why Leolin was killed by this cult was her head is part of a ritual to bring back the cult's god. They need other stuff to make this spell more powerful, but I've also written it, they don't actually fully need the actual things to use the spell. So the spell is going to happen no matter what. It's just these extra items they grab. There are 6 in total. Will make the spell more stronger, and hopefully by the end make things more dramatic in the final part. I've got the final part sort of noted down. I've got it in my head. I'm obviously not going to show it to you, just in case one of the players see this video, because I don't want to spoil anything for them. So after going from the from the funeral, they then spoke to a wizard who then explained the overall plot and the items that they've got to get. The items they've got to get or stop the cult from getting, I should say, are the blood of the innocent, a minotaur's horn, a mermaid scale, the essence of a spirit, the ash of a vampire, and the tooth of a dragon. I literally went for the most fantastical but also stereotypical things I could think of at the time. It took me a few weeks from my last session between this sort of new session to actually think about and to come up with what it was. And I was umming and ahhing, and there were a few things that got dropped. I was going to have like innocent gnomes being sort of mutilated, and I was like, I don't want to go too dark. And then there was like all these different things. I was looking through the monsters and sort of seeing what I could go with, and I thought, you know what, let's just keep things simple. Let's keep things sort of fantastical, but at the same time have the threat level, try to get the threat level to increase as they go from each place to each place. Now, the first place they headed to was a place called Ram, which I kind of had a slight Western theme because one of the players is he loves cowboys, so I thought I'd do a sort of slight westerny town, and that's where I placed the Horns of the Minotaur, and that's where I came up with the idea for the map. So the first session for them was them actually getting there. I want this to be like feel like an actual journey, so I've come up with the places where they're going to, and then I had to decide how they're going to get there. They've been given a horse and cart. One of the returning characters is who gave them this horse and cart is a character called Kindly Bob. Now, Kindly Bob is a whole story unto himself, but he does tie into the final sort of the final event, I guess. I don't know what to call it really. The finale. That'll do. He is basically a shopkeep, or is he? In the second session, they came across another Kindly Bob who looked exactly like the first Kindly Bob, but obviously didn't. Well, not obviously. He didn't know about the first Kindly Bob's appearance. Since then, they've talked to the original Kindly Bob, and the original Kindly Bob is knows about the other Kindly Bobs, but he's being quite shady. He's not wanting to let anything to sort of go deep, and he himself has actually gone off on his own separate adventure, while our heroes go on their adventure to try and stop the cult. And obviously, part of this adventure will also be weaving in the mystery of Kindly Bob. I can't say it out loud again because just in case my players see this. But as we go sort of further on, I will sort of possibly do videos about characters and things like that, and sort of coming up with characters, because that is quite a novel sort of thing that happens. Because a lot of this stuff, I'm starting to realize, is it just comes to you out of nowhere. Sometimes it comes from the players. Sometimes it'll just pop into your head as you're doing something completely different. Or in my case, I like to listen to music. I like to listen to soundtracks from films and things like that. I've always been a big film fan, and sometimes the music will inspire me to sort of have such events. Like the final event, the reason why I've got to where we've got to, and the whole plot was listening to some soundtrack music on YouTube. I can't play any of it, annoyingly, because obviously YouTube will copyright claim it. But it just popped into my head, and I was like, that's brilliant. That's exactly where I want to go. And then I worked backwards from there, hence why we got all the different layers of what we want, or the special items that we need to grab, and a proper sort of fantasy quest. Keep it simple and keep it sort of as fun as I can. I also want to vary the areas that they go to as well. So each area hopefully will be a little bit different from the last. Anyway, so they've also been given a gem to use to kind of scoop up the rest of the Kindly Bobs, because, as I said, there's a special thing about him that I really can't go into at the moment. That is definitely a later date sort of thing. If you watch the other two videos, you'll have to, and you want to hear more about Bob, you'll definitely have to continue to listen to these as we progress. Now, on their way to their first stop of Ram, which is where the Minotaur horns were, I wanted to sort of flesh out my world. So I had a special area where they actually got kidnapped. There's going to be like lots of things to do on the way. I thought I needed that rather than just then going, they've gone from here to here, and then here to here, and then here to here, because that is essentially, to me anyway, really boring and not a great way of running a campaign. The guys sort of, I feel like I want these guys to like get to really love these characters, even though Shadowdark can be quite deadly, and these guys can end up sort of dead, sort of just straight away. I want them to sort of love the characters and get used to the characters and hope that they don't die, so they don't do stupid things like try to pick up snakes. I'll get into that in the next one. So they don't do stuff like that, and they try to take care of their characters. So on this journey, I had them basically. They went from like normal grassland to a dry, airy desert, and naturally, you start to get thirsty in those areas. So I placed a well, and I thought, what could there be at the well? Loads of different thoughts popped into my head. Again, I can't really say much at the moment about what has actually got planned, because some of these things are planned for other areas in the campaign. But this one, I thought, you know what? If they drink from the well, if they drink from the well, they're going to get knocked out and they're going to get kidnapped by what can only be described as a nut job. And they then have all their equipment stripped from them, and they get placed into an underground arena, as it were, where the idea was they had to fight their way out of the arena. I did have a special sort of section where they could get out, which they managed to find and get out, which is good because the time was ticking, and they really we were getting a bit too late, so they couldn't really continue for much longer anyway. And I had them fight a variation of different creatures, just to get myself used to doing these different creatures rather than just constantly the cult and other such sort of the similar sort of stuff, like orcs and goblins and things like that. Because again, I wanted to mix it up a little bit. They managed to find their way out. They killed the guy who kidnapped them, and they also, very kindly, I'm very proud of this, they also wrote a note on the well to not drink from the well, so that way no one else would just get passed out or sort of made vulnerable by drinking from this well. From there, they headed to the actual main city of Ram. They got there. As I said, it was a very sort of stereotypical, sort of westerny type place. It wasn't fully Western, because obviously this is a fantasy land, but I did put a very sort of westerny accent on. It was, I can't remember the accent now. It was, oh my God, what was, I can't remember the accent. It was very sort of, well, howdy, partner. That sort of as stereotypical as you could get. I think it was a little bit deeper than that. I've got a bit of a sore throat at the moment, so I'm not trying not to do sort of the horrible things that make my throat worse. And yeah, now I needed a place, and time was ticking, because I tried in my infinite wisdom to write both directions. I've given them, or had a map in mind, and the characters had a map, and there were 2 areas, or there's the 6 areas, I should say, that have been marked with a circle, so they know roughly where they're going. They've got the starting point, and of course, naturally, you're going to go to these areas that are closest. One was a place called Greysdale, which they're going to after this. And the place before that is obviously where we're at, called Ram. I'd written, because I like to write sort of what we're going and the story, I'd written everything for Grayscale and everything leading up to Ram. And I had in my head, I had what I wanted in Ram, but I couldn't find any maps online for it. And it is quite frustrating. I did try to use the map maker that came with Roll20, but I couldn't get on with it. So I found, I was sort of flicking through the this book here, the Games Master Quick Start Guide, and then it hit me, you know what, I'm pretty certain there's a map in the back of this. And lo, there is. There's a map, which was perfect. It's a map about the Minotaur. There's the Scarlet Minotaur in the center here. And I was like, you know what, this is absolutely perfect. This is exactly what I need. So I had them go through there. Now, there's all, as you can see, there's all these areas and there's all this stuff. And I'd set it up to be all, like all different rooms and all different traps. And my players literally came up this way and then immediately went this way and then went straight that way and managed to get to the Minotaur just like that, like almost instantaneously. And I was a bit like, disappointed, to say the least. A lot of work had gone into sort of adding stuff to these extra maps, but you know, you can't control your players; they go where they want, and the bonus is it keeps me on my toes as well. To the extent that in the next video, I will be talking about how I'm starting to freestyle things a little bit more, because I'm starting to get a little bit more confident in that, which is always good. Anyway, so after that, our heroes had grabbed, they stopped the cult, because obviously the cult was there as well, trying to grab this Minotaur and the Minotaur's horns. They stopped the cult, they killed the Minotaur as well, because the Minotaur was a bit of a pest to the town of Ram. And they successfully completed their first mission. Now, I want this for them to be a bit of a challenge. And I've decided to have the things basically They don't know this. They will know this now if they listen to this video. I know one of them. I know one of the players will. But now they are basically, as they are going along, I've got another, or basically them and them in my own mind, but the bad version of them going to where I want them to go, or where I've predicted them to go in my head. So, for example, our heroes team went to Ram, but I thought, because Grayscale is the place where one of our characters grew up. One of our heroes grew up, and that's where his brother. And I thought, oh, they'll go there first, but they didn't. They went to Ram, but the villains, they went to Grayscale, and naturally, I thought, you know what, this is a perfect time to change the story somewhat, and I can actually add a little bit more of a sort of a rushed, oh, you didn't make it this time element. But before we get to Grayscale, they once again had to make the journey. The journey wasn't as long as it was from the first one to the second one, and in fact only lasted sort of half a session. They sort of did a couple of very, very minor things. They saved a little kid from a monster, and then they sort of had a bit of a chat. They also came across another kind. Actually, no, they came across two kindly bobs in this time round. I should really backtrack. Before they got to Ram, they found a kindly bob. He was an old, doddering kindly bob. He was a lot older than the other ones, and he was a bit forgetful. They touched the gem, and the gem basically just made the kindly bob sort of shriek out, turn to ash, and then sort of disappear, basically. On this second kindly bob, on the way to Grayscale, they discovered an empty kindly bobs. It wasn't actually empty. There was a little creature in there that hissed at them and then smashed out of the window and ran away. And then they saw the corpse of a different kindly bob. This kindly bob looked like a regular kindly bob, but he had his throat slit. I probably can't say that for YouTube, because YouTube's a big pansy these days, and it gets upset when you say numerous things. But yeah, this kindly bob was deceased. He was no more. He was not a fresh kindly bob. But they touched the gem, and then something similar but different happened. The building crumbled. The kindly bob sort of evaporated and turned to dust. So that's the kindly bobs as where we're at next time. I think next time I do one of these videos, I'm going to write a list of things that happened first. I need to stop doing these just by ear, because I am very forgetful about everything. That's why I take numerous notes about everything, and make sure everything's written down, or else I will completely forget. Anyway, after they discovered the kindly bob, they then went to Grayscale, where they found the entire place decimated. It was originally, in my mind, it was going to be a full town, and the town was going to be under siege. It's a dwarven town, so there's only one entrance and one exit, and it's a big sort of cave system and everything like that. But it was going to be under siege, and it was going to be a race for the player character who's called Nern, and the other two heroes to get there and to basically save his family, save everyone of the town, and stop the cult and his brother from committing this evil deed. But because they decided to go to Ram first, none of that happened. Everything completely changed, and they'd lost the town. So when they got to the town, all that was left were sort of zombie-like husks that were roaming around. They did a very clever thing, which I had to come up with on the fly. In my head, I didn't actually even consider it. I had the zombies obviously not attack the cultists, because I don't want to be like, oh, you've just entered the room, there's two cultists, they're being attacked, blah, 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 every time they went to a room or a new area. So they questioned why were the cultists not being attacked by the zombies. And then off the fly, I was like, some sort of rune. So they've got this rune now, all of them, apart from one character, we've got a new player, but he won't be until next time. They've all got a rune on them, which basically stops them from being attacked by any zombies, effectively. So I can't really throw zombies into the mix, unless, of course, I change the... I can just say that rune doesn't work. So if I do decide to put some zombies in there, I'm just going to say, sorry, the rune doesn't work because it's a different type of zombies. There we go. Jobs are good, and that one's not a thing. But yeah, so they did that. That caught me a little bit off guard. but I was quite happy with it because it made me think on the fly, and that's exactly what I want to do with the role play. I admire my role play friends for how they can role play. One of them does everything off the fly. He does zero preparation. He might look at a book, but that's pretty much it. Another clearly is like me, who makes quite a lot of notes, and he. I think he is the best out of all of us. He is absolutely amazing. I don't know how much of the stuff he does off the fly, but it's always a massive adventure, and it's so much fun. And then the third is similar to the second, but I think he also uses a lot more of a story structure like I do, and a lot less improvisation and sort of a little bit more control. So he's kind of in the middle of sort of me and number two. I don't really want to name them because some people don't like being named, obviously, in internet videos. But I absolutely love. I love all three. I love playing because they're so sort of completely different GMing, and it's such a different time each time. I really enjoy playing. Anyway, back on track from the side tangent again. They were now in grayscale. They quickly actually went through it. They didn't go through sort of the long way around. They went straight down to where the action was happening. They did manage to stop the spell from sort of being even worse. It's still pretty bad because obviously the villains now have one of the items where they've got one of the items to make this end spell even more devastating. But they did manage to sort of avenge the town and completely get rid of all the cult, and the town is now a burnt cinder. That was where we ended the session, the third session. That was the final one for that one, which gave me plenty of opportunity to write for the next time. But I'll get into that in the next video because this is meant to be all about how I'm getting on and learning to GM. So now I suppose I should really dive into that. So basically, it's. I do think I'm starting to get a little bit better. Them throwing things at me that I'm not expecting is a blessing, quite frankly, because it keeps you on your toes. It makes you think a lot more. And it also helps you learn how they think, if that makes sense. You can't predict. You can never, ever, ever, ever predict where your players or what your players are going to say or do. But you can have a rough estimation and a big umbrella or tree, sort of a big tree filled with branches of many places that they might go and the things they might do. Normally, in our group, we're not murderish. We are sort of, sometimes we play heroes, sometimes we play thingy, but we tend to do things for sort of just for comedic effect, to make each other laugh, which is one of the things I absolutely love about it. They've been quite less lenient on me. I think they know I'm still a little bit nervous, but they are starting to sort of come up with ideas and things like that when it comes into combat, and it's like, yeah, that could work. That's quite cool. I'll do that. And because this system, because Shadowdark is very easy to pick up and very easy to learn, this is all you've got for stats right here. So you don't have to sort of overly worry about learning everything that they've got. You know pretty much what they've got, and you can just choose from one of these stats and then sort it out that way. And it's been a lot easier than I think if I just dove straight into 5th edition. I do think I kind of want to do Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition at some point. If I do that, I might actually, if with permission from my roleplay group, I might actually record it for this channel. If that's something you guys are up for, let me know. It'll be like my first time actually doing or GMing a roleplay sort of for an audience. It'll be the first time ever for Dungeons and Dragons as well, which is, again, it's same but different. So it's going to be sort of quite unique. And yeah, it's an idea I've got toyed with. That won't be for any. That won't be anytime soon, because of course I've got to get through this campaign before I start the next, because that will eat my OCD. Basically, I need to finish this before I start anew, because otherwise the story might disappear as well, and I might lose interest. And I don't want to lose interest in this story because I'm actually loving writing it. I'm loving the fact that my players are enjoying it as well, and it's been an absolute blast to just grow a full town and city, and then sort of from there it went on to sort of is now a world. Basically, I've got things in my head that I absolutely loved sort of coming up with. I've got things that are sort of bubbling away, but I don't quite know how to implement them yet. But that's for the future. I don't have to worry about that at the moment. In the end, I think, like I said, I've said this a couple of times before in the previous video. Shadowdark is absolutely perfect if you are new to GMing. If you've never GM'd before, definitely give Shadowdark a go. It's very easy to die in it, which obviously is an old school. I believe it's old school revival. I don't know the full thing, so if you don't yell at me if you know better. But yeah, it's very easy to die, but it's also very sort of easy to keep your players alive if necessary. Don't let them be morons. Basically, is the whole thing. But they can still just die just by getting like badly hit by weapons and things. We had a incident in the fourth session, or the fourth set of sessions, where a player very nearly died because of combat, which was I puckered. Quite frankly, my butt did pucker because but if it happens, it happens. It's going to be one of those things that I eventually do have to deal with. As for sort of inspiration and sort of where the story comes from, like I said, listening to music really has helped me. It's helped me get an idea of what I want. It's helped me sort of get a flow of where things should go and what I want. Because what I start to do now is I've started to think about the individual areas that they're heading to. In fact, I'm going to show it. I was going to save this for the next video, but I made a prop. I actually made a living map. Well, not a living map. I made a real life map that I could photograph. Originally, I was going to scan it, but my scanner doesn't work because technology is garbage these days. But I did create this map for my players to look at. Though I took a photograph of it and then uploaded it to Roll20 and added it to the thing. And basically, they started here at Arbor, then they went to Ram, then they went to Grayscale. I won't tell you where they went next, but as you can see, I've tried to sort of even out and evenly space things out for where they can go. I've got to write the next two sessions. I've got these two. What's that? These two bits are already written, and well, they're finished. They're gone. It's been done. And I've written all of these two, or most of these two as well. And then I've got to concentrate solely on the next two, which I will do in this sort of period of break that I have. It's one of the other GM's time to go now. I've basically got 9 weeks to continue my story and to think about things. So I'm going to take I always take a week off to have a bit of a breather. Let me put my teeth back in. I have a week off to have a bit of a breather. And then I'll start sort of gestating ideas, or sort of really trying to sort of think about them heavier. And like I said, music really comes into it. Sort of there's lots of great cinematic type music on YouTube, sort of epic music, piano music, just movie soundtracks in general. I find is really good and really useful for just sort of coming up with ideas or sort of plotting out roughly in your head how you want dialogue to go, how you want sort of villains to be. I can't speak about this so much yet, but I've got ideas for the characters and things like that to throw in later on. But I think that'll be a different. I think the whole character video will be a different video because again, I've got 9 weeks. I can do another session. I can do sort of another session thing, but then once I've done that one, I've got nothing to talk about for another, so often. So I might actually start talking about characters and other such things and coming up with that sort of stuff at a later date, sort of in a later video, and then then talk about my sessions afterwards. But this third session, as I said, went incredibly smoothly. I learned even more. I got more confident, which is the most important thing about GMing, is the confidence. You have to be like, you don't have to be like massively confident, but you have to be confident in your own decisions. Don't worry about sort of how players are going to take things, because if you got like me, I think I'm very blessed with my role play group. They are three. They are, well, they are three. They were three. They are now four. Four people who will just roll with anything. They're happy to play any game, and we have quite a good sort of communication and friendship. And it's very good for basically letting each other do whatever we want. No one sits there and starts whinging. No one complains. No one says, "Oh, that was rubbish." Occasionally yourself, you'll be like, "Was that all right? That was a bit," or at the end of the session. But most of the time, it's generally quite good. I've never had a bad thing to say about any of the role plays I've done with these guys, and they've never sort of said anything sort of that I've done has been wrong. I mean, obviously, when something isn't going as well as you want it to, and that's where you need your confidence. That's what I'm learning. That's where, if something's not going to plan, have a quick think while get your players to just talk utter garbage to each other for a bit, and while they're doing that, have a quick think, and then come up with something, or listen to what they're saying and then change the story on the fly as they're doing it, and then it's a brilliant way of actually sort of coming up with something that again your players kind of suggested. So you're like, oh, I had that planned all along, or you know, or they've mentioned it, and you thought, well, that's a good idea. Let's swing it around, change it ever so slightly, and just dive straight into that if they want to, and just sort of go with your instincts and your confidence, and you'll be absolutely a-okay. I think adding a little bit of of drama as well is quite good. We ended quite on a down note on these ones because Nern, the dwarven character who lived at Grayscale, his brother has basically decimated his hometown. He's killed, as far as Nern knows, and as far as you know, and as far as I know, he's killed all of his family members. Everyone's dead. I'll let you in on a little bit of a secret. I did have Nern's home on this map in Grayscale, but they didn't go that direction, so they never found his home. And there was stuff in there that does lead to the future of the campaign, but they didn't find it, so they're never going to know. And I'm not going to say it here, just in case they are listening. So, you should have explored better. But it was quite interesting because I had like a good couple of paragraphs of like descriptions and things like that that sort of described the area and sort of set up a little bit more of a plot. But because they didn't go in that direction, they're never going to know about it. And I absolutely love that aspect of GMing. The fact that sometimes you spend a couple of hours, a couple of days coming up with these ideas, and your players just turn left and they never see it. And you have to accept that. And I think that is absolutely brilliant, because also I can now take all that and shove it somewhere else in the story at some point if it feels right to do so. I don't know if I'm going to do this with the stuff that they missed out on Grayscale, because they have now got to Worldjord, which is the next part. But I'm going to again I'll speak about that in the session 4 video, which should be coming soon-ish. I'm dreadful at doing the roleplay stuff. I am trying to get on it more. I'm trying to sort of branch out a little bit more from just paint guides and the hobby streak, which I normally do. I want to do battle reports, and as I said, I do like the idea of starting a brand new campaign using Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition with me as the GM and recording it for you guys. I do like that idea. It does tickle my fancy. as it were. There's an actor in me. I'm an old man. I'm not an old man. I'm a middle-aged man now, and I'm a failed actor. So well, I say failed actor. I never actually gave it a shot, but I was really interested in acting when I was younger, and honestly, Shadowdark has been a perfect outlet to get that out. Roleplay in general is a fantastic way of getting that out. I can't emphasize enough to you guys at home, to you people that are listening, how much good a sort of a role play group can do for your mental health. I don't have a great track record for mental health. I'm not going to go into it here. It's not really the sort of thing for this video. But having this role play, having my hobby in general, has kept me going, has kept me focusing. And one of the things that has really kept me going and really kept me focusing is running this Shadowdark campaign. It's been something I look forward to doing. It's been something that, I mean, it's caused a little bit of stress, but that's mostly because of me going, oh no, I haven't actually finished doing that. Oh no, I got to do that about 5 hours before we're going to role play. So I quickly have to rush into that. But again, it's not been bad stress. It's been good stress. It's been exciting stress. It's been like, oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to experience this with everyone. And it's all been great. It's all been good. And it is such a boon to your mental health. And honestly, if you can find one, look for one. Even if you have to do something like online, just go out there, just reach out, try and find the nicest group you can, because obviously there are groups out there that are a little bit nitpicky. You don't want one of those ones. You want a nice group, a nice relaxed group that, like I've got, that don't really sort of care about sort of, they aren't massive sticklers to the rules. Obviously the rules are important, but as it says in the beginning of Shadowdark, I believe that the most important thing about about any game is basically how the GM runs it. The GM can change the rules on a fly if need be, and they are basically effectively a god, because it is your world, and it is entirely up to you what you want to do. And yeah, it's been such a great thing doing this stuff, getting to run this campaign, and I'm so excited to sort of continue with it. I can't wait to do the next video, but I am going to wait for a little while. I don't want to do sort of constant role play videos, especially I'm trying to work out how to do a better format. This is okay. Having handies in the thing is okay for me, but I've also been I'm fully aware that I've been everywhere and anywhere and not all at once in this in this video. So I'm going to I think after this video, I'm going to take some time and do a little bit more structure sort of write down a little bit of a structure. So when I do the next video, I'll have that to look at, and I won't be sort of all over the place like I am with this one. If you do want to continue with me on this journey of sort of Shadowdark, if you actually want to know a little bit more about the story, I can quite easily sort of I can do a video about the actual sort of the story so far. If you want, I don't know. I don't really know what's interesting. I interact with the people who comment and stuff on my videos. I'll always sort of answer comments, but I never really talk to you. I never really ask you questions about what you want, because again, my channel is mostly paint guides, because that's what that's the hobby streak. I've been doing a hobby streak for over 2,000 days, nearly 2,500 days. Good, it has been 2,500 days, has it? I don't know. No, it's nearly 2,500 days of non-stop painting and other parts of the hobby, and I should really sort of start communicating with you guys more. So if you want to see, like I said, if you're interested in my world of Shadowdark, please ask, and I will happily, if you want to see a video on that, I'll happily come up with something and do a video. And yeah, like I said, if you want to see the me sort of moving on as a GM from Shadowdark once that happens, please let me know. And most importantly, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the rambling, please subscribe. I promise in the next video, it'll be much more structured. I think I said that in part 2. But anyway, it'll be much more structured than this one. And yeah, thanks again for watching. Please subscribe, give the video a like. What do you like about Shadowdark? Do you Shadowdark? Do you GM? Are you just a player? Have you thought about GMing? Are you too nervous about GMing? Are you sort of do you want to do it but you can't be bothered? You know, it's sort of any opinions I'm interested in, because GMing is, like I said, it's really fun. It's an absolute blast, and I really enjoy doing it. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling now. Thank you again so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing if you subscribed, and goodbye for now. I'll see you on the next video.